Alrighty guys, I'm Casey and welcome to a brand new episode of Into the Farlands. This is a series where we are attempting to reach the Farlands. If you don't know what the Farlands are a piece of janky terrain that generate roughly 12.5 million blocks out, and the only way to get there legit is to walk there. I'm sure there are ways to get there other than this, but we are going to walk the distance. And so we will continue in this episode. In this episode, I want to talk about something that really is dear to my own heart. I want to talk about parents. Because growing up as a kid, I had what I like to call four parents. You see, I had a mum, I had a dad, I had a nan, I had an uncle. And the uncle is particularly the main topic of this video. And this is really difficult for me to talk about this uncle, because out of all the people that I've lost, I haven't dealt with his death. I don't know what it is. I just can't process it. I just genuinely don't know what it is. And I've lost a few people, but this particular uncle I lost many years ago now. But to help you understand things, let me tell you what my immediate family was like. Growing up as a kid, my mum worked as a carer for my nan. She looked after my nan and she cared for my nan. Now, my nan wasn't like wheelchair bound. She wasn't really, there was nothing really wrong from her, apart from she had some damage to her lungs, which meant that she struggled to do much of anything. She wasn't on oxygen and she wasn't on anything like that. Her lungs weren't failing, it was just years of working in a factory. Some of the hairs had damaged her lungs, but anyway, she needed help doing various tasks as she got out of breath relatively easily. And my mum, being the only kid who was unmarried at the time, or one of two kids who were unmarried, but the other one had been married twice actually, I think. The third time didn't come till later. But my mum was pretty much the one that got that call to pretty much be there and look after her. And my mum wasn't the oldest kid, as she was tied for youngest. She's a twin, so she is tied for youngest. But that being said, the whole growing up scenario was me, my mum, my nan, my Uncle Den. Now, my Uncle Den lived with my nan, and he'd lived with my nan ever since he was a little kid. And he was my granddad's brother. Now, my granddad unfortunately passed away about 8 years before I was born in 1982. But I never really got to know him. But most of us grandkids, we mourn him like we knew him. You know, his death is something that we still feel because, well, between my mom and my aunts, he never truly died. He never truly did. And we learned so much from him. And even though we never met him, we only saw him in pictures. We still learnt a lot from him. And I just want to share something with you. Just apologies there. Something that he said, and he used to say this a lot according to my mum, but he used to say that don't let others make you into something you're not. And what he means by this is it's so easy to want to get revenge on somebody. It's so easy to be angry at somebody and be mad at somebody and this treat them as such. But the truth of the matter is, if that's not who you are, don't do it. Don't let it become you. Don't let it consume you. You know, if someone says something about you long enough, you start to think, you know what, why don't I just be it just to shut them up? Don't let people make you into something that you are not. Because at the end of the day, if it's not you, don't become it. Just don't. It's not worth it. But anyway, when my granddad died, my uncle very much believed so that he was now the man of the house. And as such, he needed to look after the family his brother left behind. So he never married, he never got his own family, but he didn't need one because he had us. We were his family and he was our family. But yeah, he took over the house. He started looking after my nan, he started looking after the kids and then the grandkids. And he did such an amazing job at this that on Father's Day, he would get Father's Day presents and gifts off of all of us. You know, he was like another dad to most of my aunts and uncles, and he was the only male role model I really had growing up. You know, I didn't have my dad. My dad was AWOL most of the time, you know. He would turn up as and when. You know, my dad had to be a dad for 3 hours a week. That was it. And he failed at that most of the time. You know, his allotted time with me was on a Sunday from 10 o'clock till 1 o'clock. But he would work those days quite a lot, or he would just go to bingo. And the worst part is, I would sit at the bottom of the stairs and I'd look out that window waiting for his car to turn up. And I would be all excited every single Sunday. And he just never turned up. And he never rang. He never told me he wasn't coming. I just had to figure it out. But I was an idiot child. I kept believing in him. You know, my mum looked after my dad. My mum looked after my Uncle Den later on in life. But she didn't have the time to take me to the park. She didn't have the time or the money to take me swimming or to these carnivals and circuses. My dad used to take me. And I knew that every time he picked me up, it would be an adventure. I would get away from that same old life, sat in front of the SNES, playing games, which wasn't bad, but it was nice to finally get to go to the park. It was nice to actually be able to do things. My mum was a very strict person. She was very worried of losing me. So, you know, when it was hot outside, I had to be smeared in sunscreen and have a top on. You know, I couldn't go into the neighbor's pool in case I got bacteria infections. You know, my mum was always super worried over stuff like that. And she still is this day. She wrapped me in cotton wool. And she's a lovely woman. This isn't anything wrong against my mum, but it was my dad that I got away from all of that with. You know, I wasn't allowed to go on the grown-up swings. I had to stay on the baby swings in case I fell off of them at 9 years old, 9, 10, you know. Wasn't allowed in the deep end when I went swimming with school or if I went swimming with a member of the family. But when I was with my dad, I could go in the deep end. You know, I could go on the big slides. I could go on the grown-up swings. I could climb these climbing frames, you know. My dad was a lot more lenient with me with what I could and could not do, you know. And so going out with my dad was an amazing experience. And it was one that I loved. Because he used to pick me up. We used to listen to music. He'd show me some of the songs that he discovered that week. Particularly Lighthouse Family. Lighthouse Family is one of my dad's favourite bands or groups or duos, I think it is. And I really like a lot of their songs, and I still listen to them to this day. And he was great for those 3 hours when he did show up. But he didn't show up a lot. You know, it would be weeks. And there was no hard, fast rule by my mum. My mum wasn't like, oh, you can only see him on these days, you know. She told my dad he could see me whenever he wanted to. He picked those days. You know, he picked 3 hours on a Sunday. As a lot of you know, I separated from my wife recently. I guess it's not so recent now. And she gave me the same choice. Like, well, when do you want to have her? I was like, all the time. But that's not fair. That's not a reasonable request. And I says, what about 7 days on, 7 days off? I have it for 7 days, you have it for 7 days. You know? And I've been doing that for months now. You know? And it's not that hard. I mean, sure, when I've got my daughter, my YouTube kind of goes down the drain, but I do this as a hobby. And I don't make nearly as much money from work as I do when she's not here, but again, I had a kid. My responsibility as a parent is to look after that kid. And it's not just about responsibility, it's about the fact that I actually enjoy it. You know, she wants to be a YouTuber. And, you know, I've just started getting her into making videos and recording and stuff, and I'm loving it. I always wondered why my dad wasn't like that, you know, why it wasn't enough. Now later on in life, when I became a teenager, he did start having me more. He got rid of his girlfriend that he had at the time, and he met another lady that he ended up marrying, and she had 2 kids. I never got along with the girl, the daughter, but I did get along with the son. And anyway, this started about a half a year of regular visits with my dad. And I thought she'd kicked him up the rear end, that he had to start being more of a dad. Because he was now having me for an entire weekend, and the following weekend he would have me for half a weekend, and the weekend after that wouldn't be at all. And this was the same schedule that their mum had their kids. His new wife had her kids. I mean, she had her kids all the time, but this was just the weekends that she had it. You know, the half a weekend when I wasn't there, for the half of the weekend that I wasn't there, was the same half a weekend that she didn't have her kids. You know, they went to their dads. And the weekend I didn't go there was the weekend that they went to their dads, you know. Anyway, it was great right up until my dad and her married. And then that kind of went down the toilet, because in my stepsister's words, what she told my dad was I pulled a knife on her. And my dad believed her. And the thing was, my dad didn't even ask me about this. He just stopped having me. And I had to ask him why. You know? But I didn't ask him why for a good year or so. You know, I was like, when are you having me? And he just kept putting it off and putting it off. And I would go a couple of months without even ringing him, because I just knew that he wasn't going to turn up. I knew it wasn't going to happen. And anyway, when he finally did tell me, he didn't want to hear what I had to say. And I would never pull a knife on anybody. Not just because it's not my nature to do so. It's not unless I'm on a game. But my cousin was killed. He was stabbed. He was 18, 19, and he was stabbed. And he stabbed right in the throat and slit upwards. You know, and that happened when I was a kid. It terrified me. I remember being petrified of even going to the knife drawer. For years, I learned to eat with 2 forks. You know, I was really scared of knives for a while. My mum knew this. And to think that I would pull a knife on her, I mean, I'd gotten over my fear of knives by this point, but I wouldn't do anything like that because of what happened. It's not a fun game. It's not even playing. You know? But I never got a chance to defend myself. He just assumed she was right. And in my entire life growing up, I spent one Christmas with my dad. This was a couple of years later after this. For whatever reason, he was moving. And that was it. He was moving. He finally bought his own house. And instead of it being a 2-bedroomed cramped house where the 3 of us would sleep in the same room, you know, this was finally, there was a room for all of us, and I could just bunk with my stepbrother. But that didn't last long, because again, I kept putting it off. There kept being problems. There kept being issues. Work, whatever it be, I don't know what off them were. I stopped caring, I really did. But I spent one Christmas there. And it was an alright Christmas. Wasn't brilliant. But I still have everything. Because it's the only Christmas I got to spend with my dad. I've got this broken and remote controlled helicopter. I've got this lava lamp that the bulbs burn out on, but I don't want to replace the bulb because he bought it me for Christmas. I'm sure he didn't buy it. I'm sure his wife did the Christmas shopping. But I can't part with it. And I don't know why. Because he's certainly not a dad. That was a time when I discovered something worrisome on my body. And it never occurred to me to go to my dad. I went to my uncle. Same uncle that I was talking about earlier on. Went to him. You know, when I was going through puberty and my body was changing and I didn't know what was going on, my dad wasn't there, but my uncle was. When I had a bunch of bum fluff on my upper lip and I needed to shave, it was my uncle hounding me to shave, telling me I needed to shave and needed to get it cut. And it was his razor that I used, you know? And then when I changed my name, because I had my dad's name, I had both my dad's first and second and last name. Not second name, middle name was given by my mom, but my dad chose my first name and I had his surname. I didn't want it. I never wanted the first name. I hated the first name my entire life. But I didn't want his surname. It was his name and I didn't want it. He wasn't a part of my life. I wanted the surname that belonged to my family. You know, and I go by the name Casey Davis. I chose Kyle, my first name. And I chose Davis from my family. Because they were Davis. And I got rid of my dad's surname and I got rid of my dad's first name. You know, there's no connection now. Not even the initials are all different. I mean, sure, there are still members of my family that call me by my birth name because it was very hard for them to adjust and they never have. But even I don't think of myself by my birth name. I never ever referred to myself by the said name. I hate the name. I only speak it if I have to. As you can tell, I'm not revealing it. Where's my crafting table? I need a boat. So I shouldn't have picked up that bed. So when it comes to dads, this is particularly what this video is about. A dad isn't the person that raises, that fathers the kid, you know. He's not the person that helps to create the kid. No. Dad's the person who raises the kid. If you're adopted and you're looking at your mum and dad and they're not your real mum and dad, you're wrong. They are. If they raised you, if they tell you off, if they buy you your school uniform, if they praise you, if they make you laugh, if they make you cry, if they buy you Christmas presents and birthday presents, that's your mum and dad. You know? And that's what being a parent is. So you've heard me mention my cousin a lot. I used to game with her as a teen. I've mentioned her quite a bit over the course of this series, but her dad, I don't really know what happened to her dad, her birth dad. He just wasn't in the picture from when she was like 3 or 4. And my aunt ended up marrying for a third time. She ended up marrying a rich man. And anyway, he took her on. And I always heard my cousin talk about him. So much so that he was no longer his name. He was dad to her. She called him dad. And I remember one year for her birthday, I don't know if it was her birthday, his birthday, Father's Day. It was some special occasion. But she presents him with a deed poll. Now, a deed poll is what you get for changing your name. By the way, when I changed my name, my uncle, he paid for it. But anyway, when she presented him in her deed poll that had her last name, now a double-barreled, the family name, and then his name on it, he broke down. Because it meant the world to him. When she went to uni, he paid for it. You know? Now that's another story because she got very stuck up. But apart from that, she was her dad. He was her dad and she was his daughter. And I remember one year that her real dad, her birth dad, tried to find her. And my aunt was worried about presenting her with this. Dog's barking at nothing. Anyway, I need to put my compass back on so I know I'm going in the right direction. It should be coming in for the end of this day. But anyway, when her real dad, her birth dad anyway, got in touch with her, and I wanted to see her, and Mum said to her, says, Dad wants to see you. And she was like, he's in the next room. And she went, no, your birth dad. She knew this, the guy that she was calling dad wasn't her real dad. She knew that. She wasn't oblivious to that fact. She knew she had another dad. But she just turned around to her mum and said, tell him no, I've got my dad. And it was just the way that she said it. So confident and so not caring that, to her, this guy who'd married her mom 9 years into her life, he was her dad to her. And to me, my uncle was my dad. He was my father figure because, honestly, I would say that I cried more over his death than I will my dad's death, but I have not cried over my uncle's death yet. I can't. Every time I try, or every time I get close, I have to stop myself because I know that when I do, I won't stop. I will break my heart, and I just don't want to. Because when I do that, it'll finally hit me that he's gone for good, and I can't face that. Not yet. One day. I mean, I shouldn't say gone for good, because I am religious. I do believe in an afterlife, so... But you know what I mean. Because there's so much that I want to show him. I really want him to see my daughter, because he would love my daughter. My uncle was very prank heavy, so I get a lot of my pranking attitude from. He was always teasing and tormenting us kids. And my daughter's one of those kids that you can prank, you can play with, She's gonna take it as a joke, she's gonna laugh, and she's gonna do it back to you. And he would have loved her. And I'm not talking a lot about my nan in this video, but my nan was equally as much a part of my life as my uncle was, and that's part of the reason why I won't deal with my uncle's death, because when I dealt with my nan's death, when she died, this was about 3 or 4 years before my uncle passed away, I just went into like a meltdown mode. I started rebelling, I treated my mum like crap. I really made my mum's life hell. I was taking off at all hours of the day, and I just walked for miles and miles and miles. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't want to be here anymore. I miss my nan that much. I wanted to be with her. I even laid down in the middle of a road, and I just laid there for I don't know how long, about an hour. I don't know. And thankfully, I live in a village in the middle of nowhere, and traffic's very light, because if not, I wouldn't be making this video right now. And that was like my first real experience with death. I said my cousin died, and I had an aunt that died before that. But we lived away from these people, so I didn't see them every day. But I did see my nan every day. I did see my uncle every day, or almost every day. I mean, as I got older, there were days I didn't see them. But my life growing up was up. 99% of the time it was get up, go to school, get picked up from school, go back to my Nan and Uncle Den's, stay there till 8, 9 o'clock at night, go home. That was my life. I spent more time as a kid at my Nan and Uncle Den's than I did at home. I guess that's just where we were all the time. I battled life-threatening problems when I was a kid. I was in and out of hospital. They didn't think I was going to make it at some points, and this is what tears me up the most. You have no idea how much this gets to me. All of that time in the hospital, all of the tests, everything. I only remember 3 things. I remember my mum trying to wake me up and me saying, "No, I just want to sleep." And I went back to sleep. But this was when I was high on whatever gas it is they give you to knock you out. I remember being in the arms of my aunt and my aunt trying to soothe me, and I remember crying out for my mum, and I remember wailing for my mum, and my aunt just kept telling me that she was my mum. She was my mum. And you know what the funny thing about that is? Probably want me to say that my aunt is my real mum, but she's not. I told my mum about that when I finally broke down to my mum a few years ago, and I told her some of the things that were leading me to have the nervous breakdown that I suffered a few years ago. And I told her that what bothers me about being in hospital, and I told her the memories that I had and why they bother me. And she says, no, you got that wrong. That was me. I remember that. You were wailing for me, and I had you in my arms, but I distinctly remember it being my aunt. But I was running a fever, my body was shutting down. I think I was hallucinating. But I didn't know that until a couple of years ago, and I told my mum about it. But the last memory that I have is the most detailed one. And I do have a couple of others, but they're more feelings and smells than actual memories. But this one, I remember going for a blood test. I remember the room. I remember where everything was in the room. I remember the room very distinctly. I don't remember the guy doing the blood test, but my dad was there. My dad was there. And I remember them jabbing the needle in, and I'd had literally hundreds of blood tests. It takes forever to get a needle in me when I need a blood test now. It really does. Most of my veins are gone. But they finally found a vein, but it was right next to that little ball on your wrist. And when he jabbed the needle in, it jabbed against that, and I went and puked. I puked over my dad, I puked over the doctor, and I puked all over the toilet. And I remember that. The thing is, I don't remember my Nan and Uncle Den coming to visit me, and they came every day. I don't remember my mum visiting me at hospital, or my mum being there, apart from that one day where I woke up, and that was for a brief second. I can't tell you what colour the bed sheets were, I can't tell you where we were, I can't even tell you what the operation was for, because I don't remember. I do know I'm missing a few things. I'm not whole. But, yeah, anyway. That bothers me because why don't I remember them? Like, I remember the feeling of the needle in my hand when they used to put one of those needles in you, the IV needles, you know. I remember the feeling of the bed and the smell and the taste of the hospital food. I remember that. I don't ever remember eating anything from the hospital. You know, I don't remember anything. That drives me crazy. I should remember my mum, right? And I should. But I don't. That makes me feel guilty. Because she should have been there. She was there. My dad turned up once, maybe twice. The whole time I was there, Mum said he barely turned up. His son was in the hospital, peeing blood. His kidneys were failing. The doctors had no idea what was wrong. I couldn't go to the toilet without an escort when I was at home. I remember this being at home. Every time I went to the toilet, my nan, my uncle, or my mum went with me. And they had this long stick that they would put into the pee, and it would tell them if there was any blood in it, or how much blood was in it, depending on what it went. And my mum's still got these booklets, so she recorded this in. She's still got them. My dad didn't show up. Didn't care. I mean, how much of a crap human being do you have to do not to care? The strange thing was, when my nan died, I froze and I blacked out like 28 minutes. And I know it's not a specific number, but it's just a roundabout number. Because I remember them telling us, and I sat there and I couldn't respond. I didn't know what to say when they told us that they couldn't revive her. And we were in the hospital room, and I remember looking at the phone, and I just remember thinking, what? And I felt like I was there for a good 2 minutes. Apparently I was frozen for over half an hour. didn't feel like half an hour. It only felt like a couple of minutes. It was a good couple of minutes. I know that. Because I kept thinking to myself, you gotta move. You gotta get up. Just go to the parking lot. And I remember the thoughts that were going through my head. And I don't know how I got half an hour worth of thoughts. You know? It was about 6:15 in the morning, and I rang my dad. I don't know why I rang my dad. I don't. But I did. Are we on the third day? I feel like we're on the third day. I feel like we're on the third day. Maybe this could be a bit of a longer one. Yeah, why not? Because I'm honestly not certain if this is the third day or not. But yeah. I don't know why I rang my dad. I still don't know to this day why I rang my dad. But I did. But yeah. Family. It matters. And I've talked about family a couple of times on this channel because I'm very big on that. But when I was a teenager and I wanted to create my own game, I needed a better computer. I wanted a laptop. I couldn't afford it. I went and asked my uncle if he would sign the credit agreement. And at first he said no. But then he said yeah. And he signed it. You know, and I had to pay him back at £5 a week. This £500 and some laptop, £5 a week. It was like £20 a month. But I didn't have money to pay him back, and he knew that. So he taught me how to work. You see, when my nan was alive, they bought a van, a disabled van that had wheelchair access, because obviously before she died she was wheelchair bound. She suffered a broke a hip, and then because of the hospital blundering everything, she ended up having strokes, her brain ended up getting damaged, and she just wasn't the same person afterwards. But anyway, so we had this van, and they ran the car that my mum drove. Okay, so when my mum, my mum before this had a Rover, and they ran the Rover because she used it to go and do stuff for them as well as do stuff for herself. You know, she'd take them shopping and stuff. But anyway, he taught me. So anyway, this van was used for pretty much everything, from taking my nan to and from care, to running my uncle around to do the shopping, to pretty much doing everything. So it'd get dirty very quickly and a lot. And every Sunday, before we had dinner, I'd clean it out. And he would pay me £5. And I would give him the £5 back off of it. We didn't actually go through that whole ordeal where he'd give it me and then I'd give it him. But every couple of weeks or so, he'd let me keep the £5. He'd give it me and say, no. You don't do a good job. Reward. And he'd give it me. And that always meant a lot to me. Because, you know, my mum wasn't rich. You know, it's a pocket money. I didn't get pocket money. Didn't get an allowance. You know, often if I wanted something, I'd be wanting it and wanting it and wanting it. You know, my nan, when she was alive, she did a lot to get me a lot of stuff that I wanted. But, you know, my mum said to me once, you know, want one of your Doctor Who videos? Yeah, videos, VHSs, remember them? I was like, yeah. She went, well, go and put a bunch of them in the Amazon basket, and I'll pick one and I'll buy it you. So I did. I put about £100 worth of Doctor Who videos in the basket. One of these was a £50 Sharda with a with the script. So the next day, my mum goes onto Amazon, completely forgets that she told me this. She puts a game in the basket that she wants, a PlayStation 2 game, and buys it. And the bill comes out at about £100. And, well, she didn't have that. And she went to my uncle. My uncle was like, yeah, I'll help you out. I mean, it wasn't a straight yes, because it was a little bit tight. But the fact was, when we needed him, he was there. You know? And I never got to tell him how much he meant to me. But let's rewind a few years. I want to share probably one of my most fondest memories with him. Because you see, my eyes are wet. Even doing this is hard. So I'd just gotten out of hospital. I wasn't allowed out of the house. I just had an operation, and my nan needed to go shopping. My mum needed to take her, but she couldn't leave me. I couldn't go to my nan's because I wasn't allowed to leave the house. So it meant that my uncle was tasked with babysitting a 8 or 9 year old. I don't remember how old I was. The thing was, I had finally, after my mum and my cousin hogging the N64, I finally had it to myself for a couple of hours. And it was set up on the floor in the living room. And I spent the entire trip that my mum and my nan were shopping, which was a good couple of hours, playing Mario 64. But more fun to playing it on your own. So I sat there, talking my uncle's ear off, showing him every little thing. And I actually discovered that you could get 2 stars on the princess slide while showing him the princess slide, because I managed to beat it pretty quickly. I was where I first discovered that star. But I just remember that talking his ear off for hours about that game, and he just sat there and listened, you know? You know, one of the most frustrating things is, back when I was a kid, back when I was a teenager, I didn't care about war. I didn't care about military stories. Sounds like a creeper. I didn't care about, you know, hearing about back in the good old days. Now I'm older. I really love all those kind of stories. My uncle used to talk about him for hours. If you mentioned anything, he would tell you about his army days. He was very proud of them. He loved telling the stories. But as a kid, I wasn't into that stuff, so I didn't really listen. I was always more distracted. But now I write a lot of stories like that, and I'm really heavily into it. I would have loved to have heard all those stories, and I wish that I could ask him about them. You know, what I'd give to be able to pick up the phone and give him a call and ask him. So God, if you're listening, don't go with Virgin Mobile. They are a terrible company. Go with Tesco Mobile. They are brilliant. £7.50. You get more than enough minutes. You know, more than enough. £7.50. Of course, you need to buy a phone and you might get addicted to Pokemon Go, but you know, and don't watch Lucifer. You might not like that series. You know, it praises the devil and all and that. But if you're watching my videos, you know, I mean, does heaven get internet? I hope it does. How am I going to make YouTube videos when I die if heaven doesn't get an internet? Ugh. Don't want to think about a world where I don't make YouTube videos. I love making them. Anyway, maybe I'll just die clutching my router. Yeah, my PC. Be buried with it. Problem solved. But yeah, I really wish that I'd have been as interested in this stuff then as I am now. But yeah, the main thing about this video, the main thing that I actually wanted to talk about was that a parent isn't a biological parent. A parent is the person who raises a kid. In my case, my mum, my nan, and my Uncle Den, they raised me. And I need to make a video talking about my nan, because I spent a lot of this video talking about my Uncle Dan. But my nan was very, 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 very soft with me. Like, I rang her up one day, and this is no joke. I actually did this. I rang her up one day, and I said, Nan, will you buy me a Nintendo GameCube? How much is it? £100 and some with Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker, and Ocarina of Time. Had to be that special edition one though, which was like 40 quid more than the standard one. And you know what she said? Yeah, but you be a good boy for your mum. One day I'm going to sit down and record a video without my phone ringing. One day. And now I have completely forgotten exactly where I was in my conversation. But yeah, I remember we were talking about fathers and parents and how they are. It doesn't matter if they're biological or not. It's the people who raise you are the parents, in my opinion. You know. And oh yes, I was telling you about the GameCube with my nan. That was where I was years. And she bought me this GameCube that came with the special edition of Zelda. And that was like my first proper experience with Game Rage, though. Because I broke a plate. And my mum took it off me. Yeah. Damn witches. But the real interesting thing is we used to have a pop man, and this pop man used to deliver pop to like all the family members. You know, he used to come on the old people's estate, and we all used to get a crate of pop from him. And you could buy like a crate of pop for whatever price, but you got the entire crate. It came with like one of everything, and unfortunately, one of those was limeade. And you know what good old Casey doesn't like? He doesn't like limeade. But unfortunately, my mum's rule was we don't get another crate until all are drank. So I used to try and give it off to my cousins, but no one likes limeade. No one drank the limeade. So I always had to drink it. But I accidentally, I don't know if I accidentally knocked it over, if I did it on purpose, but I accidentally knocked it over. I genuinely don't know. It was a few years ago. And the cover of my Wind Waker is now stained green, and it still smells of limeade. And it's just a nice little memory that I keep. I keep stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely great family. And I've talked about family quite a lot, but that's going to do it for this episode, guys. I've definitely done 3 nights now. And when we get to episode 100, I'm going to F3 and I'm going to check the coordinates and see just how far we've come along in 100 episodes. I'm going to gather that we could traverse about 3,000 blocks an episode. And we times that by 100 and we get 300,000. So we are going to be nowhere near. But yeah. So that's going to do it for this episode, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider leaving a like and click subscribe if you want to see more from me, guys. With Casey, my phone is ringing, so I'm going to get going. Bye-bye.